I am your Cory Frogley, and I've got my co-host, Joseph Stith, with us. And our special guest today, our expert on this topic today, is Mark Moser, who's been with us in the past, and excited to have him back with the show. And what Mark is going to be covering today and in our discussion is really the job you signed up for that you didn't really realize that you were signing up for when you became a doctor. And that, do we call it babysitter or no? Just kidding.
No.
It's not a babysitter, but it is building a team, and it's actually become one of my favorite parts of being a doctor, believe it or not, of owning my own practice, owning my own business, and that's building a team that is accountable, that is powerful, that is engaged, that becomes unified. You know, I'm a huge sports fan. I've been lucky enough to coach my son's sports teams. There's just something about bringing a group of people together with one purpose, one focus. And I can't tell you, there's nobody better on this expert of this topic than Dr. Mark Moser. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. You said a couple things and made me start thinking already. You know, when you get out of dental school, you're thinking about what's the best handpiece, what's the best laser and technology and software and marketing. And that's this generation that's coming out. When I got out of dental school, we're probably still thinking about handpieces, but we're thinking about, well, should we really use composite instead of amalgam? It was all technical. Yeah. And I had an interesting experience. I had a large study club meeting a couple years ago, and it's mainly younger doctors. They were probably out of school, average 3 to 5 years. And I had a handful of older doctors that had been out of dental school for 20 plus years. And at the end of the meeting, and I led the study club. Study club, of course, we share ideas. I asked everybody to share their best tip. And, you know, just as expected, the younger docs were talking about technology and techniques and clinical. And 100% of the older docs said something that related to appreciating your team, growing a strong team, making your team, you know, more loyal and camaraderie and supportive and valued. And they get it. They get it. When you have team turnover, we talked a little bit about that on a different, one of our different show interviews. You really can cause a big loss in what you're able to do. I mean, your team is your backbone, and they can make it or break it for you. It is so critical. And everybody knows they don't teach much about practice management, the business side of dentistry and dental school. That's one of the classes I taught at University of Missouri as elective class, and pretty poorly attended early in the year, but these kids getting ready to get out of school, it's very well attended because they're panicked at that point. You know, to start off, we're going to talk a little bit about the basic things. Just the golden rule. You know, everybody knows golden rule. Treat people like you want to be treated. A lot of docs forget that. And one thing that we know, people remember how you make them feel. And this is true for your patients. That's why you always want to talk about the patient's personal passion. But this is also true for your team. And when somebody moves and needs a new dentist, they don't call the dental board or the state dental association and find out your test scores and look at your transcripts in dental school. They ask their neighbor or their coworker, and it's not it has nothing to do with your clinical skills, not your crown margins. It has to do with your personality and how you made them feel. Well, think about that with your team. When you have these team members that are really loyal, they're very loyal. Oh, you know, Dr. Froggy, he's great. He's great. He's the best, the best, the best. Well, that's because you made that team member feel special. You made him feel appreciated and valued. And we're going to dive into that a little bit. So the golden rule, it really goes a little bit beyond that. You know, so there's something that I call, well, I don't call it, you know, I steal ideas from others. That's why we have dental school. We don't just go out and figure it out on our own with trial and error. Right. And years ago, there was a famous study by McGregor. And it was on, you know, the McGregor study was, well, what's more important? Teaching values, making them feel valued, or teaching skill sets? And actually, the answer is both. But they're trying to say which is most important. If you can make somebody feel so valued, so appreciated, they'll want to please. We see this in our children. You know, that's why the best, you mentioned coaches, you know, John Wooden, brilliant. Lou Holtz, brilliant. Vince Lombardi, brilliant. And they all do it by coaching people up. I Great book, Wooden and Leadership. It's one of his best books John Wooden ever wrote. And he takes good basketball players and makes them do the most they can do because they believe in themselves. So it's all about appreciation. There's one of the top, for one of the AGP meetings, I helped get the keynote speaker, and I contacted a friend of mine who's head of programs for the ADA, that's Kin Education. I said, who got the best feedback of any other speaker? And it was Bruce Christopher. And the one thing that he built his talk on was appreciating your team. Employees leave employment because of lack of appreciation or lack of feeling valued. It's rarely lack of money. And that is so critical. So in this McGregor study, they found that there's something called the Hawthorne effect. And the Hawthorne effect is just that, how you feel valued or appreciated. So with that, I challenge people to, my docs that I work with that are, recently out of school, the first thing I have them do is after Strength Finders personality profile, so know what strengths they're working with, I have them read the 1 Minute Manager. It's an old book, 1980 by Ken Blanchard. And it's basically catching employees doing something right on a daily basis. You catch them in front of their coworkers, their team members, patients, every day. Did not come natural for me. Today we have some electronic gizmos, ways to track that. I used to put Post-its on the back of my private bathroom door with their name on. I moved from one side of the door to the other side of the door when I caught them doing something right. Their names are on it, so I knew, okay, I caught them doing something right at least once a day. I had to force this behavior. After a while, it gets to be easier. Assistants are easy. You're always passing them off, passing the patients off to them. You can brag to the patients. They're the best in the office at temporary crowns. I wish I could make temporary crowns as good as they can. You can always compliment. They love it. They love it. Coach them up. I
got a question for you on the Mark.
Sure.
I've been, I grew up, 70s and 80s. I'm a huge Michael Jordan fan. I've been watching a couple documentaries, and one of the things that he did relentlessly was to new teammates is he would actually mentally break them down before he would then build them back up.
Mm-hmm.
And they said that nobody was more relentless than that in trying to develop, he wanted them to prove or help them become something greater than they ever thought they would be. And Joseph, and both of you, I know you both have been in thousands and thousands of doctors' clinics. Have you seen this used? Can it be done effectively in this setting, or is that something that you don't even believe belongs in our realm?
That's a good question, because it works really well in the Marine Corps.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
I was trained originally. I was trained to do that from a leadership perspective. You make it so difficult that they are on the verge of giving up, and then you begin to rebuild them, and then you build loyalty that way. In the professional office, you don't have time to build an individual with that, because you can't get over the hump of them believing in you and trusting you, and they'll leave if you attempt to do that in the private sector. Unfortunately, you don't have time for that.
Mm-hmm.
But what you do have time for is listening to them and giving consideration to their thoughts and their input, so that you can quickly build a level of trust in which they have the loyalty to the doctor that really pays off, like Dr. Moser's referring to. They have to know you've got their back. They have to know that you care about them as a person before they will feel inclined to do whatever it is you need them to do and grow in the practice.
Great point.
Good point, Joseph. I agree with Joseph. In the military, picture boot camp, that's what they do. And if they were able to quit the first week, 90% of them probably would.
Oh, I would have. They too.
Yeah. So, in the private sector, you don't want them doing that. And I think encouragement is really important. The first, I would tell assistants, you weren't born with the knowledge, neither was I. So for the first 6 months, it will be hard. I paved my way with words. I let them think it's going to be harder than it really is. Mm-hmm. So they're not like, oh my gosh, they're not discouraged. So you have to encourage them in their little successes. I counsel these young docs not to get discouraged with them, that it's taking longer than It'd be if you did it. So you have to encourage them for what they are doing right and coach them up from an early level. But you don't want to do it in such a way they're not challenged, because you don't want them to plateau earlier either.
Right.
So you're always setting goals. And the doctor should, it's likewise for themselves. They should always be content with where they are, but always a little uncomfortable also. A little uncomfortable with their schedule, a little uncomfortable with skill sets, always looking to get ahead and get better. But you do the same thing with your team. So it's a balance.
I recognize how important like bonus systems are, and that's a big question we get is how do I figure out a bonus system to really reward my team that's motivating and engaging? Do you recommend a specific way?
I love bonuses, and a bonus that's designed correctly should do several things. It should incentivize. You should more than pay for themselves, and it should run an autopilot where you as an individual are not subjective whether they get it or not. Now, with that said, anyone who impacts that bonus, usually they're going to benefit from it. They should clearly know how they're being measured, being able to measure themselves, know where they are at any point in time, and have ownership of that bonus. And they should be measured above them too, accountability at all levels. And if you have those things in place, it's amazing how well, it's unbelievable. I can give testimony after testimony, unbelievable. I mean, it's like, okay, Cory, if at the end of the month you had your bills paid and I walked into the room and said, hey, Dr. Frogley, if I gave you this $1 and you give me a nickel, would that be okay with you? Of course it would. Well, that's what a bonus is. They're always performance-based. I personally don't believe in sick pay, rewarding people to be sick. I know you have to have a way to get them out the door if they are sick, but I don't believe in Christmas bonuses. I don't believe in calendar raises. I believe in incentive raises and performance raises, based upon their fair skills and performance.
Yeah. And the response I get from a lot of doctors is they're just worried about their overhead going up, their overhead. So how do you help them regulate that and release that fear?
I do it by example. I tell stories, testimonies, and I remember one where a CEO said, we can't afford bonuses. And I gave them the example of the $1 and the nickel. And the owner said, we're going to do it. And I've seen this in 3 groups now. And I think the topic was, one was on new patients, one's on reducing late cancellation and no shows. And one company paid out $42,000 in bonuses, and they increased their bottom line by $1.6 million. That was net. The other one, I remember they paid $60,000 and they got $1,050,000 back, and that was net. So that more than pays themselves. They have to be designed. I love production bonuses, collection bonuses. I really like when you combine the two. Some are big into the BAM bonuses. There's pros and cons to that. There's some fantastic bonuses. I like bonuses that phase themselves out automatically, yet by the time they're gone, the habits are in place, instilled, and the glue is dried.
Yeah, to focus on specific systems.
Exactly.
What I found, when a doctor says, I can't afford to pay a bonus, I realize his mentality is more focused on money than on building incentives where he empowers the team, because it's not about money. If it's really built, I know this is overused, the whole win-win philosophy, but if it's really built correctly, whatever system you decide to use, it should be a method whereby you're rewarding in a way in which you want to pay money because you're getting 3 times the return. Exactly.
I love paying bonuses. I love and how the bonuses are paid are very important.
You bet.
I think I shared with you once my 7 steps for goal implementation, and one of them, step 6, is celebrating success. And the companies that just bury the bonus in the paycheck, bad move. Bad move. Now, it's not as easy to pay cash anymore because of withholding and all that, but that's the best way. But at least write a different check and make a big hoopla out of it. I mean, celebrate. Do it during a team meeting. Just celebrate. It's so important. Make it important. And bonuses is interesting. If you give a bonus for a $100 gift certificate to go to the spa, that carries a lot more than just $100.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it is. It is. or gas cards, or
it's the same with patient rewards for referrals.
right.
If it's a $10 or a $20 off your next bill, it's nothing. It's just invisible. You send them a $10 or $20 gift certificate, it's whoa! It's like, man, it's crazy. It's the same with the staff. The same reward can be applied into the team as well. You're right.
No, that's a great point. And so as that's done, and the doctor's coming at this with positive energy and excitement, that means the world to the team to feel that.
Yeah.
But I do know the team, they're not supposed to talk about their pay and stuff like that, but you guys have seen it. Teams gossip, they hide in the back corner, they talk about other staff. How do you guys regulate that to maintain a good morale within the team?
Well, first of all, you have to make, everything starts a team meeting, and you have to be transparent in your communication and very transparent in your expectations. And you need to make it clear that gossip is not allowed in the office and what gossip truly is. And like that'd be a new goal. You explain it why, you get them to buy in, they understand it. And like any new goal, you will always be tested. The most important part of that testing, that you as a leader survive that testing. So when they do come to you, oh, Dr. Moser, did you hear about Mrs. Jones and some gossip? Well, my response, because I'm being tested, well, is this gossip or is this fact? And gossip is something you heard, fact is something you can prove. And they think about it. And what happens after you do that a couple of times, it goes away. You hear it, I address it, it goes away. But you have to be clear that it's off limits. I even had a little contract that they signed, and it defined what gossip was. I had no room for it in my practice. It didn't do my practice any good. It brought negative energy, negative attitudes. Attitudes are contagious. It's yours worth catching. That rolls into the point I want to make about your attitude in your practice is key. When we talked about morning huddles once, I said, when you put your hand in the back doorknob of your office, you tell yourself it's showtime. You don't feel well. You just got in a fight with your spouse or whatever it is, car trouble. You walk in, you fake it if you have to. You're the leader. It's not worth it to pass on a bad attitude to them, because 5 minutes into the team meeting and they're happy, you're going to be happy too. It's contagious. So you have to lead. No poor mouthing allowed. You have to coach them up and keep the attitude high. And by expectations and writing with gossip, you can make it go away. Now, that does lead into something I wanted to discuss that's really important to me. I get feedback from doctors, and one of the areas I get the most positive feedback is what I call the mature adult policy. It has to do, these doctors get out of dental school and they never signed up to be a mediator in their office. So one assistant comes up and goes, oh, Dr. Moser, Janie won't help out with this, or isn't doing this, or is doing this, or something else. And when I was young and not as wise, I would say, well, okay, let me go talk to her. Now I'm a mediator, and I train them. I'm going to be a mediator, and I go talk to you. Wrong move. Mm-hmm. So again, it starts the team meeting, and you roll it out. And I've done PowerPoints on this for other doctors. They all like, thank you. So you're like, okay, I love you all, and I hired you for many reasons. One, you have a brain, and two, you're a mature adult. So this is the mature adults policy, because nobody's going to say, no, I don't want to be mature. So this is the mature adult policy. So since you are a mature adult, when you have some kind of issue, whatever it may be, with another employee, I expect you to talk to them about it. Don't talk to me. I want you to talk to them. Go directly to them, because you're a mature adult. They're a mature adult. Talk to them. Don't wonder about it behind their back, gossip behind their back. Gossip's not allowed. So again, like any new goal, you will be tested. And so the hardest part is surviving that test. And they come to you. This happened to me twice early on in the implementation. Dr. Moser, Janie's doing this again. I said, just a minute. I'm going to go get Janie. They're like, wait. He goes, too late. DEFCON 4 has been activated. So I go get Janie, and I say,
you probably only have to do that a couple of times.
Twice. That was it. And different people. And the word gets out pretty quickly. I mean, twice. And then I didn't do it for 15 years. And so it's like, okay, I'm nice. I said, apparently you have something to discuss with each other. Go in this consultation room. I usually put a box of Kleenex between them. Come out when you're done. I used to make the mistake of say, don't come out till you're done. And I just say, I speak positively. Come out when you're done. Or I used to say, if you can't work it out in 30 minutes, I'm gonna work it out. You won't like my answer, but I stopped all that. Just come out when you're done, because they always work it out. They come out hugging, best friends for life, and it works.
Yeah.
It does work.
Yeah. I don't think that there's anything inappropriate, although it takes some time to build this culture with your policy and procedures manual. But I don't think there's anything wrong with having it in writing that that any discussion of your personal income, salary, pay rate is grounds for immediate dismissal.
Absolutely.
They should begin with that expectation right from the beginning. Now, if that culture doesn't exist and you already have that problem, that can be it can take some time to build, but that without that expectation, they will test the water, and that creates so much problem for morale in an office.
Always.
Just horrible. Every time someone gets a raise, everyone else knows about it. You can't win at that. It is disastrous.
There's no room for it.
And then I love what you said about forcing them with your own, pushing it back to them, allowing them to be accountable, allowing them to work through it themselves. As soon as they know you're not willing to get sucked in, and as soon as they know they can't recruit you to solve their own problems, that culture begins to change. But you've got to reinforce it with your own actions of saying, well, how would you approach this, and putting it back on them.
That's a great point.
It totally goes away.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember if I mentioned this before too. It kind of ties into it. These doctors, they carry so much weight on their shoulders because they didn't know they shouldn't do these things.
No, they don't.
So they wear a lot of hats. And the second thing that I hear the best feedback from doctors about reducing their stress is what I call the two potential solutions, where when a staff member brings a problem to you, and again, starts a team meeting, you say, one of the reasons I hired you, because you have a brain. You're a mature adult and you have a brain, and I appreciate that brain. I want you to use it. So when you have a problem that you bring to me, and which is fine, that's fine, I would like for you to bring two potential solutions to that. As crazy as they are, harebrained, whatever, I don't care. So, of course, new goal, new policy, they all buy in and think, yeah, we understand, it's a good idea. So, I trust them. I let them know, I trust you. Mm-hmm. So they come to you, well, and Dr. Moser, we can't find the laser curing light again, or this is broken, or this is out of ink, or whatever it may be, and you say, well, what are your two potential solutions? I used to say, well, what do you think it might be? But anymore, I say, well, what are your two potential solutions? And they give you this deer in the headlights look, and you say, wait, I really care. I'm nice, respectful. I really care about your issue, but when you have two potential solutions, come back to me with that. Well, here's what happens. You don't hear anything. And I'll never forget when I started this. I was worried that something would happen that I never know about, that I should have known about. Well, after doing this, I remember after about 8 years, I realized that I never heard anything from anyone. I heard like one thing a year. But the good news is I never heard about something that I should have known about. My office never fell off a cliff. It never blew up. There wasn't anything horrible that happened. But my problems went away. And I teach this technique to management, regional coordinators. I had regional coordinators say, my call volume went down 75%. Wow. With office managers calling regional coordinators saying, hey, what's this? Can you help me with this? What do you think? And when they said, what are your two potential solutions? And people were using their brains and they're making the right decisions. That's the best part.
Yeah.
Major relief of pressure. Major relief of pressure.
Mark, I'm going to ask you as we close up here, out of everything we've covered, or if we haven't covered it, what would be your number one takeaway from this? And as you're thinking about that, I want to challenge our audience to actually sit down and restart this program with a notepad and paper and sit down and write down. You've got to mentally create your team policies for how you want your office to run. And so many doctors they get so busy in the daily grind, in the daily whirlwind, that they just never actually present to their team what the culture should be and what the policies are. So sit down, start this presentation over, and take the tips from Joseph and Mark and just list them out. These are the policies I want to implement, and this is the culture we're going to build for our teams. All right, your turn, Mark.
Okay. If I had to have one thing out of all the things I said, and everything else, well, there are some close seconds, but one for sure has to do with appreciating your team and making them feel valued. And the way to do that, simply, if you catch them doing something right every day, it will build. Whether you, oh, Sally, I heard you not letting Mrs. Jones cancel on the phone. Wow. You were respectful, you're nice, and you pulled it off. You let her know how important it was, and your scripts were perfect, spot on. You were awesome. I wish I could answer. I wish everybody answered like that. And I heard your smile. Fantastic. And I see that in front of somebody else. It's huge. If you force yourself to do something, the old 1 Minute Manager, buy that 1980 paperback used on Amazon for 99 cents. Memorize it. I read it every 6 months. I have for years. Memorize it. It is so important. Buy Wooden on Leadership. Read that. There are some great resources out there, but it's simple. It is simple, but it's about your self accountability to make it happen. I said once a day, that's the minimum. What happens is you get in these habits where you're doing it all day long. Before you know, it's contagious, and everybody's doing it, and they're doing it to you. And they call it the chairside cheerleader. Doctors are humans too. They like to hear it.
That's fantastic. Joseph?
If a doctor understands the true value of praise, if he's coming from a truly sincere place of gratitude for his team, like Mark has helped us understand, it's so easy to praise. It's so easy to see the things that they do right and to capitalize on those when they do them. If you really have this sense of gratitude for everything they're doing for you all day long. And doctors tend to think, if I'm paying them, that's thank you enough, because that's the way men kind of think. But that's not the way women think. And the predominant staff is women, and they need to feel that you appreciate them. Oh, that's exactly my greatest 2 cents.
People remember how you make them feel. You think back to your earliest memory you ever had, good or bad, it's tied to an emotion. They remember how you made them feel.
Yeah.
Well done, gentlemen. I tell you, if you like what you've heard today, remember that Dr. Mosier is one of our experts. He's got several blogs on getblueiq.com/blog, and then you can specifically sort them by Mark Mosier, and some phenomenal articles in practice management, building teams, and again, scaling. He's been involved in so many DSOs and scaling organizations and leadership. And Mark, it's just an honor to have you on the show. Again, thank you. And to remind our audience, this is part 1. We actually have a part 2 follow-up to this presentation, and excited to Mark to be a part of that.
Can't wait. Good job, Mark. Nice work.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Thanks for your input, Joe.
Stay tuned. Lots of great things coming in the future. Thank you, gentlemen.